Hello. Mr. Slow has donated $20. 750. We are up to 750. 30% of the way there. Thank you, Mr. Slow. $20 donation to the Porto Santo World Senior trip. We are 30% of the way there to our goal in November. Again, do not let me remember. Do not let me remember not to forget, or remember me to not forget. Yoda say, remember me to not forget to register for the World Senior by the September the 15th is the deadline. Until recently, I had no money in my bank account at all. And in fact, I still do have almost no money in my bank account, but we have resources. And I should be able to register and pay for the World Senior deposit for November. All right, with the help of you guys, like Mr. Slow, Masturbate, and the donors to the stream. It's a little cooler here. It's only 30. I've taken the thermometer away. It's no longer quite as interesting. It's around 30 human temperatures. All right, guys and girls, we're hosting our analysis stream. We just were streaming last night. By the way, I feel like I played pretty badly yesterday. Looking at the games, they were worse than I thought. A little tired yesterday. Not a high quality. I just didn't have a high quality of play that I usually expect for myself. Although I won the tournament, could have done better. Should have done better. I didn't feel the quality there. All right, guys, we're hosting an analysis stream tonight, so we're not playing. Ubatis is here. Masturbate is here. Presumably, Mr. Slow is here because he did just donate $20. So we've got Tomas Strangson from Tomas, who may or not be here, or may not be coming. I've got Albin Planich for Mr. Slow, Sung Prism, Masturbate, and then, of course, Spectacular Caramel. Just added extra syllable there. I was thinking, if I make a meme account called Spectacular Caramel, what would you think? You have like a stalker? Caramel is new. All right, so Thomas Strangson is here. We're just getting started. Late, as usual. All right, so Thomas, let's take a look at your game. You were white. This is this is chess. Thomas is playing white against a 2000 player named RVN. You know, is it me or do the names look really small? Can I change that setting somehow? Is there a setting? Man, those names look so small. It's like, even if I put on my glasses, it seems ridiculously small. Thomas Strangson against RVN. Anyway, not an important factor. So b6. Black plays the Owen defense. You missed last night. We're king but caught the stream later. Right. Yeah, we usually don't stream on Wednesdays. Richard. Hey, by the way, I just saw something about Dartmoor on the news the other day. There was an exciting development in Dartmoor. Was this some archaeological thing I think they found? All right, e4, b6, d4. Oh no, you looked ahead. Mr. Slow's looking ahead. I never look ahead in the see a hippos. If you see a hippo coming, get out of the way. Unless maybe it's like a cute baby hippo, and then it's probably followed by its mom, so you still want to get out of the way. They found an old burial site. That's cool. The Hound of the Baskervilles. The burial site of the Hound of the Baskervilles in Dartmoor. So bishop e7, knight c3. Now, my preference here has always been to go with bishop d3. So bishop d3, defending the e4 pawn, without committing the knight to c3. Ilyes. Hungarian, I like to call him Ilyes. Ilyes is back, setting up for f5. Right. f5 is no good. This is well known. That's insane that Chernyshov tried to play that. So I prefer bishop d3. Yeah. Bishop d3, if f5, queen is coming up to h5 a little later. Oh, that's wild. So what did Svidler do? He didn't take on f5? Svidler played d5, but I thought that the take on f5 was clearly good. Yeah. That's funny that Svidler didn't know this. As late as 2003. So, yeah. Just take on f5. And if bishop takes g2, the check is very strong. Check, g6, takes, and then black's fried. Black's just lost. Bishop g7. Amazing, like even this move wins. Belov actually played that. Pawn takes. King f8. You just take. Actually, all moves are good here. Taking is not so good, apparently. Well, it's good to know a little extra stuff. Apparently, the knight moves are clearly best. Knight f3. It's good to know this all the way. Knight f6. Queen g6. Bishop takes f3. Rook g1. Rook h7. Queen g3. And then bishop e4. Crazy variation. Take, check. And if knight back, queen takes a8. I mean, Chernyshov was playing for tricks against Svidler, no doubt. Banking on the fact that Svidler wouldn't maybe be that confident or know the line that well, but no one plays f5. So you're going to see either e6 or g6 against bishop d3. Anyways, knight c3 is fine too. It's not quite as good as bishop d3. The downside is it allows this pin. Some people will go as far as to play a3, but I also actually with you bought us. We experimented. We were experimenting with ways to play the knight e7, the knight e7 gambit here with colors reversed. So the problem is that white has trouble finding a waiting move. We want to play knight e2 in response to something like, so for example, h3, bishop e4, and now knight e2, bishop takes e4, a3, bishop takes c3, knight takes c3. But h3 isn't such a useful move. So what white really needs there is a very useful move. So let's see, what do we got? f3 defeats the purpose. a3 prevents bishop e4. Yeah, I think the best I'd come up with was something like this. Bishop e3. And then if bishop e4, you sack the pawn with knight e2. And now bishop takes e4, a3, bishop takes e3, knight takes e3. And now black has to make a very difficult decision about which way to go with that bishop. Trust me, this is very good for white. The computer says only half a pawn. But just keep in mind that you're down a pawn, and you still, and according to Stockfish, you still are like a pawn, half a pawn better. And bishop g6, h4. Remember Asterbait? Asterbait remembers this line too. Asterbait, gifted tier 1 sub to Neurosama fan 4. So h4, h5. Question is what to do next. You could just lose the tempo and play bishop f4. Not a bad move. All right, anyway, that's an offbeat idea, but I think very effective one. The gambit has been so strong in general. So you played knight f3 main line. Black plays a6. So this is like you're facing Asterbait now. He plays a6. What's the idea, Asterbait? a6? No, you're not literally facing Asterbait. That's something Asterbait has done a lot. Playing a6 if it's not necessary, when it's not necessary. Now bishop d3, and then Mr. Slow says he thinks he sees a hippo coming. It does look like a hippo. It's a large animal. Okay, now we know what we're up against. So I kind of think like you want to at least consider the possibility of playing a4 at this point to restrict b5. Absolutely not necessary. More importantly, I think you want to consider where you want to put your king, because you have the option probably to castle on either side depending on, you know, how you set up your pieces here. I think castling kingside is more traditional. There is a player here who played queen e2, which is an interesting idea, keeping the options open to castle either way. As soon as he played a6, yeah. So castle, and then he plays knight d7, and you played bishop e3. It feels difficult, you know, to deal with. I like rook e1 as this player played in the one game in the list here. That's kind of my default setup. I mean, normally I'll play rook e1 and a4. I'll play it like a classical King's Indian or Pierce. My bishop can come back to f1 and fianchetto later. So I would probably prefer to do this. There's nothing wrong with bishop e3, but keep in mind, likely black will have maybe c5 in his plans, b5. I'm not really sure what bishop e3 does. Bishop e3, and then h6. And so he takes away the g5 square. We're probably going to see g6. You could see g5. You know, so again, I think I would lean toward like rook e1 or possibly a4. You played a4. You're not castling queenside, obviously. This is to restrain b5. This is good. And now black wants to gamble. He can play g5. And so he plays knight e7. Wow, we transposed to a game, Rosenthalis versus Fries-Nielsen, 2017. So Jens Fries-Nielsen is a Danish IM, I think. Ubatis can confirm or deny. This is the guy who plays the Kraken all the time. One of my Kraken supporters. Kraken Army. Very experimental, creative player. In the opening, he chose to play this hippo against an experienced GM, Rosenthalis. So 97, and then what'd you do? 92. So 92, it looks like, yeah, we'd see this in a modern defense. Your setup is kind of like a Roi de Pez modern defense Italian game. But I still think this, Rook E1. That's what what Rosenthalis played. With Rook E1, I mean, first of all, you get your rook on the line with that king there. That can never be a bad thing. But there's several possibilities. If they choose to play G5, you'll have the additional possibility of knight back to D2 and knight F1, which might be useful. There's also the rather standard plan of bishop F1, securing the king side, coming here later. You can choose to play H3 at your own risk. If you don't play rook there, you might have an ability to play for F4. I'm not saying like Steinitz would have played rook E1. All I can say is that I would play it and that Rosenthalis played it. But, it's not the only way to play the position. So I think that your move is reasonable. I also think like this is probably reasonable. Looking for I guess if you play 92, Black's not going to play G5. Just venturing that guess. He could. He might. I don't know. Maybe he would do it anyway. But these squares look really weak. I don't like this diagonal. That looks very weak. I would think like Black would probably play G6 if you had played 92. Then you can go Steinitz Blackburn. There was a Steinitz Blackburn game that I remember played in the 1800s. The first player I could find. No, not Blackburn. I'm sorry. It was Steinitz. Steinitz. It'll come to me. But Steinitz against a different, very strong player. The what's his name? E4, E5, knight F3, knight F6, knight C3, here A3. Günzburg. It was Günzburg. That's what I'm trying to remember here. Sorry, another queen H5. Steinitz, Günzburg, 18 something, late 1800s. Günzburg was the first player I ever saw play like a double fianchetto. But I'm sure it's even older than that. But anyway, Steinitz, it was interesting to see how someone in the 1800s would essentially approach playing against the hippo. And Steinitz played for a quick F4 with a big center in the middle and attacked it directly, like F4, F5. So my point is, that's an option for you here. Play 92. You chose to bring your knight over to the king side, which also makes some sense. And I think that Black still should stick to the hippo guns. Is notice, how useful these that's the thing about the hippo. Like every single square is covered. Right. That's the problem with the restrained setups. No weaknesses. So far, Black's camp besides lack of space. So is it better to kind of wait? Yeah, I think that's normally the plan. To wait. But he goes provocative now with G5. This is interesting though. Because you can go knight G3. I don't know if you want to go knight g3 yet, but it's a hell of a good way to meet like bishop g7. If you were to play knight g3, would black play g4? If you go here, your knight is pretty sketchy out on h4. This has to be carefully calculated. Something like that. Your knight is a bit precariously placed, let's say, on h4. Calculation here necessary. So you play knight d2. Your knights, this is funny, you like reverse knights positions, and now you have f4. The break is very important. And then black goes knight g6. I mean, I agree with Mr. Slow in general. And normally in the hippo, you wouldn't want to play g5 so early. So he plays right into this break. Yeah, I mean, I think that Steinitz says that black's in trouble. Your king is pretty safe. Your pieces are coordinated. Your back rank is connected, which means that your pieces can infiltrate working together on the open file. It's very fundamental. And this is a little frightening. If somehow black were better coordinated, having an open line in front of your king might really matter. And see, he tries. Knight takes f4. Knight takes f4. Here, I don't know. I think there's clearly a case to be made for rook takes, because we can argue that is a that is a, in a sense, a developing move. There's also, Chess Riddler was in the tournament yesterday playing rook takes f7 sacrifices. What's up? Black isn't ready, right? So that's the point Mr. Slow is getting to. That black allowed the position. You don't normally allow the position to open up this early in the hippo. Yeah. So Mr. Threington is right to play for f4. I'm just questioning his recapture, because it seems like to me this would be more logical. You have pressure against f7 and you have threats of queen h5. Bishop takes doesn't really have any threats, plus it blocks the f-file. I think the case for rook takes f4 is very clear. The only real objection is e5. Ooh, I got a mosquito bite. Yeah, it rained a little bit. Black needs to play h5? Question mark? Well, no, he doesn't need to play h5. He could play h5. You're suggesting h5. Maybe. Maybe h5 is a strong move. What he needs is he needs more pawn weaknesses. But yeah, maybe h5. Maybe h5 is a good suggestion. Well, either way, it's awkward, right? If you take with your bishop, you block your rook. If you take with your rook, you block your bishop. So yeah, there's no easy choice. Yeah, h5 is a good suggestion. Rook takes, stopping queen h5, preparing maybe bishop h6, although I'm not sure that's actually a threat. I still will take white here any day. You have very strong pressure against f7, I would imagine. But you do have to come up with a plan for this. Are you gonna sack your rook on f7 and play bishop c4 check? Let's see what the engine says. Just simple moves. Rook f5, the most awkward looking. So computer says h5. Mr. Slow, were you cheating with the computer? You found h5. Yeah, I mean this weakens black a lot. No, h5 is less weakening. Okay, but I don't know. You took back with the bishop, so d4 is weak, but that's not a big deal. Black already looks horrible, I agree, but he does have e5. What I don't want to do is open up his archbishop so it's good. So if he plays e5, you really can't take. It looks like you have to literally play bishop e3, something like that. And then maybe he could take. What I'm wondering is, could black somehow defend himself? Something like this. Because black wins, black would win control of the e5 square, essentially, at the end of the day. All right. So he can win control of e5, but he's still way far behind in development. I mean, that's the kind of case where maybe we can blow him away with some sort of sacrifice. But I doubt, I doubt it's going to work right away. But there is a lot of pressure that can pile up here against f7 very quickly. Queen h5. And this bishop has no ability to. It has no ability to defend f7. So black would have to probably sacrifice the f7 pawn, check, h1, castle queenside. But I don't think that's so bad, actually. The least of black's problem is like losing a pawn here. If he gets castle queenside, he's happy. So anyway, after bishop takes f4, he plays rook g8. But that rook doesn't have any backup. So now queen f3. The obvious other suggestion is queen h5. You played queen f3, clearly setting up very nasty tactics. Queen e7, and now black's thinking about getting away to a nice holiday in the Bahamas. And then a really surprising move now, in a way, because we just played queen f3, but Thomas had another thought. He saw that black is going to castle queenside, and this shows a lot of creativity on your part. You weren't dogmatic here. You didn't say, well, I just moved my queen, so I have to, move another piece or something like that. This was a concrete idea, attacking a6, stopping black from castling. And again, my only problem is this e5. This guy is so... He's had some chances to play e5. He's been very reluctant to do this. But I think too so. He's got to play e5, man. I mean, the dude has to do this at some point. I know that there's like drawbacks, but he's going to win control of the dark squares in the center. So, again, maybe at this point you would just take. He's blocking his bishop, so this is not as scary. For example, take bishop e3. Okay, let's play. Take bishop e3, knight c5, defending a6, and then something like bishop c4, attacking f7. Black is not that far away from perhaps connecting with g2. We'll have to consult with the new kickoff NFL kickoff rules on this, but yeah, I mean, black's just hanging on, it looks like. But after this, I mean, queen f6, what kind of move is that? A one move threat against d4? Putting your queen in the f line, that's crazy. So he transferred his queen to g7, costing himself some time for a threat that isn't that serious. Rook a e1. I don't know about this. You prevented from castling queenside, or have you? You have. See, he still can't castle queenside because the bishop takes a6. It's an interesting plan. He found a way to move his queen to g7 so he can play bishop e7, maybe complete his development. And now after this, I don't like rook e1 that much. Maybe you should just do a rook lift. That was where Karpov was so strong, right? Here's the thing, you know, you have a better pawn structure at the end of the day. The isolated pawn is an isolated pawn, and you have a very clear target against what is really the base of his pawn chain at f7. So structurally, you're just better, and you don't have to win by direct attack. So I noticed that Karpov would always just like trade off his opponent's only active piece. And if you play like rook f3, with the idea of rook g3, presumably black would play bishop e7, rook g3, queen h8 or something. And here he probably just like loses a pawn. So I don't think he can even do that, you know. Okay, rook f3 is kind of a weird move, but what's he going to do about it? You know, you're threatening rook g3. I don't like rook ae1. I don't hate it, but at the same time, it could be useful if he decides to castle queenside. I'm not sure where that rook belongs. Okay, it's not a terrible move. And then e5. Okay. So he plays e5, but it's too late. You know, I think it's too late. Rook f2 is also an idea. But this is now very, very clear to me that f7 is a problem. But you have another option now. I mean, just keeping the tension. His problem is that he can't castle. You know, he cannot castle. Just bishop takes a6. So, I mean, he can, but he's losing a pawn and his king is open. I would rather your rook be on a1, though, to back up that queenside attack. So rook ae1, e5. I would just play here, unless you have a tactical shot. But I don't see it. Here. Yeah, I don't like this exchange. It opens up his bishop on f8, but more importantly, the pawn structure changes in his favor a little bit. Now you have an isolated pawn as well. I need to see a reason not to play bishop e3. What does he have? What is the reason not to play bishop e3? Is he going to do this? Can he do this? To attack like here? And we don't really love playing h3. Well, I think at this point, things could start to get a little tactical. For example, bishop c4. All hell is close to breaking loose. I'm going to guess, let's see what the computer says. Yeah, bishop e3. But it doesn't mind your move. So he plays pawn takes. And I think that both captures have to be evaluated. So now you have an isolated pawn here. I don't think that you're better necessarily as much in terms of pawn structure now. Slightly, still slightly. Now you have an isolated pawn. He has an isolated pawn, but he has the backward pawn as well. Black still has a slightly worse pawn structure. or two isolated pawns. He plays knight takes e5. I mean, knight takes e5 makes sense. Are you going to trade off your powerful bishop with bishop takes e5? Maybe. But, you know, how are you breaking through? Rook f5 is a check, and you have no control of the dark squares at all. So this gets a little touch and go. You need a quick attack against f7. I think you might have it. It might be enough. Again, black has to think about maybe sacrificing a pawn and just check king h1. I don't know, castle. Here, bishop takes a6, still good. He doesn't have any tactics. So it's pretty concrete. He takes with the pawn, and now you play bishop c3. Ah, that's such a good blocker. I hate when that happens. That's always the worst. In the GF Caro, White gets a bishop on g3, or when you're playing black in the Sicilian, and you have a half-open b file, but there's a bishop on b3. So now his only hope is h5, h4. So this is very, very key idea. He's able to basically like shut down. I mean, you're able to shut down all of his kingside threats with one minor piece, basically. He needs to castle. He still can't. So here, and he's actually inducing you. I would say he's inducing you to make a good move now with bishop c4, which he wanted to play anyway. So he has to play this. This is his plan. But suddenly, there's bishop c5 check. If you just take, I'm also thinking if there could be some cases where you could sack the exchange on f4. I think the taking here, these pawns are difficult to deal with. He has an in-between move, check, king h1, and then pawn takes, but you have queen h5 check. So here you would win a pawn. But at what price? Where does his king go? Not d7, not f8. So either e7 looks bad. So I guess by process of elimination, you have to go here. You'd have to go to d8. I don't know why I'm getting these like random challenges from people. So, yeah. I guess my question is, how seriously did you consider this possibility? Bishop takes e5. It's quite simple. He's forced to capture or check. But either way, I mean, it's the same problem. Oh, he has queen g6. Oh. Okay, he has queen g6. Now things get really interesting. Opposite color. Did somebody say opposite color bishops? Wow. So rook takes f8. If queen g6, rook takes f8 check. Forcing king takes f8. His king is stranded in the middle of the board, and you have queen takes e5. It's not airtight. Let's just say this. This is not airtight, but it looks really good for you, you know. But the number one thing is you cannot trade queens here. You know, now you'd be like fully committed to playing for major material or mate. You sack a pawn for the exchange. You absolutely cannot trade queens. You're all in here for the attack on the dark squares. But I think it's good. Wow. Computer thinks it's equal, but he only has one move. Holy shit. Rook g8 to g7. So it's not enough. for white to be better. Damn. All right, anyway, so you played a strong move, a non-committal move, b4, taking away this. Very nice. Yeah, Mr. Slow, we sold out too early. Bitcoin to the moon. b4, very good move. Sold out too early. All right, I'm worried about knight. I'll be honest. I'm worried about knight f4. The guy castled and allowed bishop takes a6, which is mental. The Sunday close. This is the 90 degrees in my office and above close. Bro. It's not my pajamas. It's not only my pajamas. This is what I always wear when it's more than 90 degrees in my office. Fahrenheit. We're at a cool 90. Yeah, exactly. 30 for those of you who love Celsius. All right. Dude, but what about this? Hello? Hello? All right, ask a stupid question, get a stupid answer. You have bishop takes f4, pawn takes f4, rook takes f4. You're attacking f7. And if he castles, he's losing another pawn, at least. Maybe not. But I mean, if I'm black here, I don't know. You know, I don't really see what else he can do. Yeah, the computer agrees. Like, without even going into the details, I just wanted to see. Oh no. The knight f4. Best chance. He castles. This drops a6. All right. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 5. All right, whatever. I mean, he's trying to survive. The dude has to make. He has to make. Oh. Seriously considering chess, the viewers. Let's see. Analysis. Seriously considering is different from playing. All right. So bishop takes a6, h5. Seriously considering quitting chess. Be another stream title. h5. Bishop takes b7, king takes b7. So when the smoke clears, black is, what, one pawn down? It's not that bad. Do you want to introduce yourself? All right. Seriously considering analyzing chess games with full concentration and no distractions. King takes b7. Black is down a pawn. White's king is safer. You covered c5. The most important move of the game was b4. Taking away any counterplay. It's too late for black. Yeah, anyway. Well, he's losing, but is bishop h4 good? Once again, you have the sack. If knight f4, rook takes f4. Yeah, I think that black's timing in this game was bad. I mean, he's already under pressure, but clearly, like, this is a better try. After bishop f4, pawn f4, rook f4. What should he castle queenside now? Yeah, castle queenside now. Look, the difference between this and the game continuation is that you have a dark square bishop staying on the board. And here you don't, you know, so there's a little bit of a wild card with this dark square bishop. The fact that it can't go to c5 is big, but still the dark squares, or, you know, The dark squares are very loose. Do you regret it, bishop h4? Well, I mean, you got the blocker on g3. He's not really threatening h4 necessarily. I guess he is, though. I mean, you voluntarily gave him knight f4. You just take with a rook and then take on d8. You regretted it? I don't know if you should regret it. I think he needs something better than knight g5. No, I don't think it's a good regret. I think that knight g5 is not scary. I think now you can maybe go into a tactical position. Like, why don't you consider taking it? Just take. King h1 also is good, but if we take it and play knight f3, you're a clear pawn up. You're threatening a5, and I think the black is done. He just has no counterplay, and it's not fast enough, whatever he has. So this is a very natural move, but I think it's probably unnecessary. Simpler to take. So after f6, I still think taking looks good. But anyways, a5. I don't think you should have any regrets there, man. I don't think you have any regrets here. You should have any regrets here. This looks really good, and you're just winning. Ultimately, nothing to regret. Why don't you just take now? Now that's a take. Okay, whatever. Here, rook d7. I still don't see any regrets. Take. Oh, now you went back to bishop f2, bishop d8. There's always this maneuver. Yeah, this looks a little scary, man. I'm second guessing bishop f2. I mean, if you just take here, you keep the game simple. Look at this. Bishop takes g5, queen g5, knight e3, with the idea of knight d5. Keep it simple. You played bishop f2. Now there's a clear shot here against g2. And his bishop stays on the board. I mean, his knight stays on the board. It's a little risky. Oh, wow. And you hit him with a tactic here. A nice move, though. Knight takes b6. Does this work? Knight b6. And if bishop takes, check. Yeah. Wow, what a neat defense. And you just knight d5. Defending, that's a neat idea. He's just defending. White can just defend with the knight. White's winning. Nothing to sweat here. He took with the knight. Am I seeing a theme here? Like, you don't like giving up your bishops, Tomas? Is there a real conscious theme here? You don't give up bishops? You hate giving up bishops? Because I would take this pretty quickly. And now you have, for example, rook a2. I'm really curious how black salvages the position after that. Well, I don't think he's lasting too many more moves. This is extremely forcing. You take, you defend g2, and black is done. He's done. He can't defend this rook. g2 is protected. He could try f3, I suppose. But I don't. It doesn't work. Not even close. He's literally got nothing there. You can take the pawn or the rook. So, all right. So you had an idea to do it the other way. You took. Oh, Surprise! That's neat. And then queen a2. Protecting this. Very nice. And he runs away. Very nice. Mate. Yeah, your way works just as well. Very nice. All right, guys. We've got a bunch more games to go over. That was a great game to start with. We're gonna do Planinich. You missed it. He could have hit you with queen to hg2 check. Where? Wait. Where was there a queen to hg2 g2 check? It's a little late for that. Oh, like some intermezzo here. Queen takes g2 check. Queen takes g2 check. Queen takes g2. Rook takes g2. Intermezzo. That's slightly messy. What do you do? Rook takes c7. King takes c7. No, you would win a piece there. I think you're winning a piece here. No, he takes this way. He can take on e3. Now you have to take, and then he takes your rook, and now you're winning. You're probably winning anyway, but it's not that easy. This would be a technical rook end game. No, it's not winning. This is not winning. Wow. You have to play king takes g2. And after, okay, you can play king takes g2. This wins an exchange. You're just winning an exchange. Yeah, anyway, that was his best try. Okay, Planinich is next. And I'm gonna take a 1 minute, well, I gotta go to get my beer for later, but I gotta go to the kitchen. It's gonna take me like 3 minutes to walk downstairs. I'll be right back. So the advantages and disadvantages of different living arrangements. Um, my last apartment was very close to the kitchen and the bathroom, and now I'm like 8 miles. It's like an 8 mile slog downstairs, all the way on the other side of the house. Like maximum distance between my workstation and where the kitchen and the bathroom is. Whereas the last apartment I just got rid of was terrible, except for the fact that it was convenient that such places were closer. Anyway, all right, we now have beer mode on. I had a consultation with my liver, and my liver said it could handle maybe a beer or two tonight. But anyway, we're on to something I've always been a little confused about. How hard it is to pronounce planage. I don't know why I always wanted to say planinage. Maybe I've seen it miswritten. So this is a study of 8 decisive games of Albin Planich at the first Dr. Milan Vidmar Memorial. So for those of you that don't know, Vidmar, a player from the past, very strong player from modern day Slovenia. So I guess Vidmar was from, as far as I know, I think Vidmar was from Ljubljana in Slovenia. At his first international tournament invitation, Planich came clear first after 15 rounds, 10.5 points. The legendary Gligorich, 10 points, and then the German Grandmaster Unziker with 9.5 points. Amazing success was later documented by a film, the internationally acclaimed director Svitkovich. It's not seen often these days that an unknown 25-year-old player beats one of the Grandmasters every day. Okay. All right, that's our introduction to Planich. We're going to flip the board here. This is a new study submitted by Mr. Slow. Guys, Mr. Slow donated $20 to our World Senior trip in November. So I'd like to just ask everyone to kindly chip in and support and donate to the cause, if you can. My donation is the analysis of these games. So we've got Planich with black. Clear, I don't know much about. I don't know who the opponent is here. Janes, another common Slovenian name. It's like Janos in Hungarian. John. Okay, d4, knight f6. c4, c5. So there seems to be a theme here with Mr. Slow. Mr. Slow and the Benoni. Mr. Slow's welcome to make any comments, questions. So I have modern Benoni. Place your bets. e6. I like the Benoni, but I don't know if the Benoni likes me. But you know, the thing about the Benoni is that it is kind of relative or form of the King's Indian. So as a player who played the King's Indian a lot, even though I didn't play the proper Benoni, you still have to know how to play the Benoni when you play the King's Indian, because there are some variations that basically overlap. Mr. Slow, you obviously, you know that. Yugoslav standard, play for supper. So knight c3, e takes d5, c takes d5, d6, e4, g6. Okay, this is all very standard. We have the standard starting position for the modern Benoni. I wanted to make a comment though. You know, I was planning on playing something interesting at the team I I was looking at playing bishop f4. Bishop f4 is well known after knight f3. You can also play it a move earlier. Anyways, okay, bishop g7, and now white plays a somewhat unusual move. Bishop to g5. I had one of these in a King's Indian maybe about 10 years ago. It's not real common to face this. See, I played the Smyslov against the King's Indian a lot, but my pawn wouldn't necessarily be on e4 yet. It would be back on e2. And if the pawn's back on e2, white doesn't have to play e4. He can just play e3. And so the structure is a little bit less committal. And if I could still play e3, I might just play e3 and not weaken my dark squares that much. The point is, if your dark squares are weak, you can't afford to give up your dark square bishop, or you can ill afford to give up your dark square bishop with white. What I'm trying to tell you guys is if the pawn's on e4, then giving up the dark square bishop is a much greater concession than if the pawn's not on e4. You could just play e3. So I've had a lot of games with white where I don't have to commit myself to that. I'll give up the dark square bishop, but it's okay. You just play e3. This is trickier now. Having said all that, there's another question that remains. If black were to just castle in this position, is knight d2 a problem? Cheers. No, that's not bad. Last time I drank this beer, it's a little sweet. We're not going to do the beer reveal. It's a little sweet. Let's just say I don't like Heineken. Okay. This is not Heineken, but sweet beers. We're not into the sweet beers. So here's my question. If you castle, then does white have knight d2? And the answer is yes. Okay, I'm not sure how bad it is, but that's the point with h6. Look at the score. h6 is played a lot more than castles. a6 is kind of indifferent. It is interesting though, are you threatening b5 if you play this move? Only 2 players played a4. Most of them played knight d2. And is b5 a thing? Shaba has a game here from 05. That's another interesting idea. I don't know. There may be something to this a6, inducing a4. I see, and they actually played bishop g4. That's an interesting idea. But I think that h6, as in the game, is rather standard. So now what is white going to do? He has to play bishop h4. Or does he? Doesn't have to. Yugoslav. That's a cool name. That's a new kind of yogurt. Standard Yugoslav. No, maybe bishop h4 isn't forced. Maybe there's something to be said for other bishop moves. Even bishop e3 isn't that stupid. If you played bishop e3, see, Yarat's played this. He's a Polish grandmaster. He's decent. Not afraid of knight g4. You're going to have to move the bishop again. But I think this is more logical. Anyways, this is very committal now. So this is like my game with this guy. Some New England 2200. Frank Wang. Yeah, it was like 2013, 2014. I won the last tournament I won in New England around 2014 New England Open. Frank Wang played this with white against me. But that was a slightly different move order. It was a King's Indian. Would have been G5, Bishop G3, Knight H5. But there's this check here. Interesting, Golko Savan, 1977. When I started playing the Smyslov system with white, it was because of Golko beating me with it really badly. The check, though, you can just play King F8 now. And that's actually, wow, another Vasquez Schroeder game. He lost Kovacevic. Keen, Tiemann, 1975. A lot of games. It's cool how many people here I've played, you know. Miles, Udasin, Computer Cheater, Udasin, Kovacevic, Golko. All right. So Knight H5, Bishop E5 check. Oh, this is the game. Oh, this is the game. You know, so what's interesting is, again, if you try to take time to do A6, wait, if you try to take time to do A6, so you could play A6 here, and then again, if white plays A4, fine, you go ahead and play G5 and you're good. But could white try to do Knight D2? And this is where things are very unclear for me. This is where you need you need to be a real expert on the Benoni. Because is B5 a good move or not? So this A4, geez, hardcore positional play here. Voldemir Schmidt, Vaganyan, lots of strong players. B4, Knight C, B1. And then white is going to redeploy, get a lockdown. So I guess the way Planinic plays is less risky, in a sense. We're not going to get overextended on the queen side. We allow this check. Who cares? Yeah, I like this. Someone actually played Bishop D7 here. Alicia Silverstone against Yevgenia Trotsenko, 1983. Right, but why? Why would you trade your light square bishop for white's bad light square bishop? That doesn't seem like a good exchange for black. Yevgenia Trotsky. I'd rather just not castle. You know, Planinic is right. Oh my gosh. So we're going to introduce you to Golko Savan, 1977. Oh no. You know that Golko has a plus score against Kasparov. He's still alive, but he doesn't play anymore. Golko, that is. Jesus, he must have played E5. Look how many games there are. Oh no. So Stupica didn't know this. No comments from the peanut gallery. No excuses. Come on. What year was this? All right, there's excuses. It was played in 1969. All right. Stupica's excuse is that it was 1969. Golko played the move in 1977, and it had been played even before that by Raymond Keane in 1975. Wow. So these English guys, Keane, Hartston's still alive. Strongest bills of all time. Wilhelm Steinitz, Willie Watson, William Hartston, me. All right. So it wasn't invented yet, the C5. This is fascinating. It's a central cave-in. So what is black to do? A6. Here's King Timon. Timon beat him, but he's just a stronger player. Although they were close in rating in 1975. The Penguin was still in his prime. Good friend of Michael Short. All right. Imagine every position on your own, even though former game examples. Well, they had the, chess informants, I guess, hadn't started yet. But I suppose the top players, had books. They would carry suitcases full of books to tournaments and stuff. Still, yeah. So this is the game, King F8. Yeah, informants started, I guess, but in the late 70s, Mr. Slow. It had to be like very late 70s. I don't know. I had a friend who had the full collection. It must have been pretty late. So bishop e2. This is a surprising move. Bishop e2 voluntarily. So another move that white needs to consider is h4. But if you do h4, you're going to get Petrosian. Petrosian against Petrosian. We'd probably go h4, g4. I mean, maybe Planinic didn't study, but I'm just saying, like, most of the top players would still study books and Shachmati BSSR and such magazines. Fisher. Look at Bobby Fischer. I mean, Fischer was scouring like used bookstores in New York City in the 60s. You could find information if you wanted it bad enough. Although it was probably harder in Yugoslavia. I guess New York City wasn't a bad place to be if you needed, info. Scouring old bookstores. Bishop e2, a6, a4, knight takes g3. I like to leave that knight there as long as possible. And now knight d7. This looks a lot like games I've had, except my pawn would normally be on e3. And that's really the positional idea that I want to point out. There's a big difference between pawn on e3 and pawn on e4. That means a lot more darts for weaknesses. If my pawn's still on e3, I've oftentimes played like knight e2, f4. And I can even like leave my king in some cases on f2. For example. If the pawn's on e3, white has a lot more flexibility. Nevertheless, this is a very strong piece. The standard plan, to see this square, wouldn't be an issue if white hadn't played e4. Now, this is an interesting move and a very provocative one. Here, Planinch is inducing f4. He's actually inducing f4. A lot of fearful players would be like, I'm not playing knight a5. I'm afraid of that. But f4, see, you have a pawn on e3. This is a much better move. Imagine how much different this is if there's a pawn on e3. The pawn on e3 can also be a target along the open file, but still. White has a lot more safety in his position. So white plays g4, and now the plan is something like probably g3. I think that white might consider king here, king here. He's stopping f5. Not a bad plan. This guy is clearly not an idiot. Rook b8, and now f3. This, for me, is a strange move. Do we have to play f3? Well, the b5. He was worried about b5. So let's say, bear with me now. Let's say I played g3. Black plays b5. You take. take and knight takes. Well, I mean, there's some tactics here, even possible exchange, sacrifice, but maybe black can play quite a few different moves. I mean, this has to be considered as well. Knight g4, bishop g4, rook takes, or maybe bishop takes g4, queen takes g4. Just for argument's sake, black has to be careful that there doesn't establish a knight very strongly on the light squares. This is 1969. Ratings doesn't matter too much. All right. I would say that maybe the ratings started to matter more in the 70s. So, but you could go to some website where they have like estimated ratings of players. I don't know how accurate that is. So I don't like f3. My problem with f3 is that it's already a travesty on the dark squares. I mean, he knows he can play g3, obviously. But there goes the e3 forever. So this is gone, this is gone. In terms of being controlled by a pawn, I don't want to play f3. Another maneuver that would be nice to get in is knight f1 and knight e3. I did that in my game from the World Team Championship. Again, the question starts to rise about this b5. How strong is b5? But, the most obvious suggestion is a5 for white. If Stupitsa wants to stop the counterplay, then he can play a5. The problem is, I guess, b5 takes, and now you have issues with their b2 pawn. Whichever way black recaptures. And here, I guess there's knight a4. Well, actually, knight a4 is a possibility. So I think that white should consider a5. Anything but f3. Now queen f6. Okay, this is no longer b5 is necessarily a thing, but I think that black has very good play on the dark squares. So Astrobate, what would you do? c4, just generously sacrificing a pawn. I think it starts to become under consideration after f3. Basically, the lid is off, All options are on the table when white is dramatically weak and his dark square is this bad. I'm starting to think about sacrificing a pawn. Just, I have compensation. The problem is this is not to be messed with, you know. That what is that like? Is that a fishing pole? It looks like a fishing pole. It's a beach, a lounge chair. Um, it's a structure of some sort, and it's hard to break it down. Like we have no way of breaking that down without F5 or H5. So you have to kind of play around it, you know. So here we see Queen F6. That's fine. So are we going to do this? And now every player's favorite move, Queen B3. I think we saw a very nice Velimirovich game that featured Queen B3, right? Quinteros, shades of Quinteros. Quinteros was a little better than this, though. Queen B3. You guys know the rule about the Benoni, right? The first rule of Benoni Club. Well, white side of Benoni Club is you never castle queenside in modern Benoni under any circumstances. So we're gonna hope he castles queenside. I think like white maybe has some ideas of going here to just interfere. So black plays b5, pawn takes b5, pawn takes b5, fluid pawns. And now what? Now we wish we hadn't played queen b3. King e7. That's an adventurous idea. I don't think you should induce rook a7 check, though. I think this is one of white's few promising concepts. So because these pawns are so dangerous, white decided to take the pawn. I think now we're going to see possibly a dark square bishop, white square bishop, ops color bishop type thing, bishop d7. At any point, black can take here, force there to be ops color bishops. Dark square bishop's much more active than the white square counterpart. Rook a5, king g8. So much for king e7. g3. Now, I suggested this plan before. I'd rather have done g3 without f3 and keep some semblance of control of the white squares. King h7, and then castle. Now, this looks interesting. c4, dark squares. But now that you've castled, the h5 could happen at some point. King g6 and h5. Oh my god. White's actually, maybe hoping for f4 at some point. So Planet just plays rook b7. Now we're threatening to double. White defends with a very slow knight b1. God. It's like connect the dots. c4. Wow. Mr. Material. Black plays, after bishop takes c4, black plays queen d8. White is expecting rook b8 for sure. But instead he inserts this move, queen back to d8. We've got queen on the dark squares. The rook can't really move, but it does anyway. Doesn't this lose a piece? Check. Rook a7 and a7. Yeah, he lost a piece. Nothing to see here, folks. That was ugly. White basically just dropped a piece. But his position was pretty ugly anyway. f4, last chance. Rook c8. Check. And then rook c2. Now, so far he's averted this e5 check. You can take and take. take. Yeah, game over. All right. Well, I mean, it wasn't exactly the greatest like opposition for Planinic in that game. Hopefully, the next one we'll see something tougher. T Streets, welcome. All right, GG. So we got Sun Prism, Astrobate, and Yabatis, and I had another game submitted here from the evil chess site. He ended last place. Again, no jokes about his name. Checkmate 994 is not here, but 944 is. All right. Perfect timing. No, it's not perfect timing. We're not on your game. Sorry, you're last. Oh no, you're last, right? Perfect timing. You're last. All right, Sun Prism is next. The Streets. Oh, you have to go? All right. You don't have to go. I'll try to make it fast so we can get to the last game. No. Sun Prism. I don't know. Is Sun Prism here? Astrobate with a gift sub for T Streets. He's a gift. Astrobate, if you give any more gift subs, people are not gonna like subscribe. Unbelievable. Since Astrobate started giving gift subs, our subscriptions are way down. Just kidding, man. Thank you. All right. So we're playing against the Caro-Kann. Now you played the Caro-Kann, and now you're playing against the Caro-Kann. All right, let's go. My coffee. I had forgotten my last sip of coffee. Coffee and beer. So d4, d5, knight c3. You know, there are some people. There are some people who play knight d2, and according to Swayton in the Carol Kampf, the tournament player from the 80s, the main idea is to be able to play c3 if black plays a kind of Gurgenidze system here with g6. The main idea is that there doesn't seem to be an advantage or disadvantage to playing knight d2. So you might as well play knight d2. You can cut down on black's options if you play knight d2. But on the other hand, this is a variation, the other Gurgenidze variation. That's so dubious for black that probably. Yeah, I started playing this in Blitz back in like 1991. I knew about it before that. I don't know when I played it first, in the 80s. But I never played this in a tournament game. It's just too dubious for black. The book move has always been a3, basically. And I guess really there is only one idea, that if you if you play pawn takes pawn, black plays b4. That's really the only idea, you know, to get like a good exchange variation, or maybe b4 helps black. But I keep thinking there's another move here for white. Well, I guess, honestly, yeah, e5. e5 is just a weird advanced variation. I don't think that e5 is bad for white. So if you like the advanced variation, you play the advanced variation of move 3. Most people who play the main line probably aren't comfortable playing this move, so normally it's a3. Now d takes e4, but somewhere I saw, keep thinking like somewhere I saw a weird move like e6. Or maybe just someone played it against me or something. I don't remember where. I wonder how bad it is. D takes e4. So here, I mean, black surrenders the center. Look at the score here in the top 5 games. Archer Gabrielian drew. Belyukov lost to David Howe. Zapata drew. A 2300 loss to 2589. The top games, it's interesting how good black's score is. And overall, the score is very good for black, but that's very unnatural. There's no reason that black should have a good score here. The insertion of these moves, it doesn't benefit black. So it's just white being like not prepared. So knight takes e4, and now knight f6. Now you need to seriously consider, I don't know the theory past this. I mean, you need to seriously consider handling this differently than maybe a normal line, but knight c5 is tempting. Black can simply challenge it, you know. It doesn't seem right. The problem is, I guess, e5. So that's not even an option. It looks like this. After bishop d3 is a pawn sack. That's pretty wild. Belyukov played this. I don't know who this guy is, Belyukov. There was a Belarusian grandmaster years ago who was quite a theoretician. Maybe he was Belarusian, maybe he was Ukrainian. I can't remember, but I'm not sure. Is this for real? Like queen takes d4? I guess it's a reasonable gambit. You know, it's playable anyway. So even David Howe was afraid to take that pawn. Howe played g6 and won this game. Yeah, no, b5 is out of place. It's not a great move. Bishop d3 looks like a good pawn sack. After queen takes d4, knight f3. This doesn't help black. I mean, who was it that played this gambit? I'm trying to remember. Somebody, quite strong. I don't mean like modern games. There was a historical game. Oh, Aliakin. Okay, so Aliakin played it. And it's interesting because Aliakin actually played the EF Caro-Kann with black. So it's called the Aliakin Gambit, in fact. Aliakin played this. But imagine black's played b5. I mean, that's even worse. b5 is not a positive move for black. He can move his bishop to b7, but that has a diagonal already, and b5 weakens his pawn structure and weakens the c5 square. So this is clearly a very reasonable move that should be played more often. So okay, takes, and now black is supposed to take with the e-pawn, obviously. What your opponent did here is really bad. You're playing, I mean, black's playing the GF Caro-Kann with b5. That doesn't really make sense. Okay, a3 isn't the greatest move either. But I'd be very relieved that they played that. You know? I mean, this is my fear. And then do we have, how big of an advantage do we have? I mean, my point is like in these EF Caro-Kann lines, this is a common move. B5 is actually played very frequently in this type of structure. So if you think about it, I mean, I was also wondering about knight moves, knight back. There's no games with knight c3. Okay, it loses time. This is classically a sucky square and allows h5 or g6. Maybe knight c3 isn't that dumb. And then there's always knight g5, which wasn't played. But at the end of the day, if you consider that this is sort of a silly move, the b5 is kind of a silly move. I mean, I'm only playing knight g5 to avoid exchanges. I'm not trying to play this move for some sort of attack, I'm just avoiding exchanges. So g takes f, very strange. And then h3. That is really weird. What are you doing? This is like you're turning into Michael Basman. Michael Basman versus Gurgenidze. It's like Basman. It's some sort of tandem chess. Basman versus Bronstein and Gurgenidze. Tandem. Dude, h3 is horrific. Okay, you don't want to play c3. If you play knight f3, you're concerned about your pawn on d4 being like weak, but you probably ought to just put the bishop on e3. I was going to suggest maybe knight f3, and then if bishop g4, then you play bishop e3. This player here in the game list played bishop e3 right away. I mean, it's fine. They don't necessarily play bishop there. They might play here too. I mean, I imagine b5 could be played in a GF Caro-Kann occasionally. So anyway, this is interesting. h3 is terrible. It's slow. It weakens your king's side. To stop bishop g4, it's just not worth it. But I mean, black, from my perspective here, we're either playing bishop f5, rook g8, maybe maybe even bishop e6 is a move. Okay, knight d7. I mean, they could even play e5. There was an interesting idea to go queen h5. Maybe even as a pawn sacrifice, but here I don't think it works. This b5 pawn is very useful. It stops bishop c4. No, bishop f4. I was talking about the bishop blocker on the file. Against the GF Caro, this is a very useful strategy, where you can play the bishop here to block black's play on the g file. But h3 doesn't really help your case. that makes the g3 bishop a little shakier, and this sort of thing might even involve like a, well, it's not stable. I mean, you can challenge that bishop later with bishop d6. So I don't know, it's a weird position, but you're kind of like walking into knight d5 here. I don't love h5. That's a weird move. You stopped bishop h6. What about this? What are you doing on knight d5? I mean, it's an 8-minute game, and you've used 27 seconds. We're not going to overanalyze it. So you castle the queen side. Uh-huh. So e6. Now you play g4, takes. And then, very surprising move now. I expect you to keep the, you know, keep the coherent structure. Okay, your knight is pretty extreme out on h4. And you have to worry about that piece being attacked, and you can't play rook h1, so you have to play like bishop g3. But this is really, you're treading a very fine line there. Probably white is okay, but I mean, how do you get your knight off the side of the board? So I don't know if you thought about this when you decided to play rook takes g4, but I think that black, I would be surprised if you played rook takes g4. He needs to consider this. Not fixing your pawn structure, leaving your rook on like an absolutely ridiculous square, and threatening f5, very likely. My guess would be that you're in trouble after this move. And I think rook e1 preventing it. Preventing f5. He's got the wooden shield. And if he casts his queen side, everything's protected on the black side. He's threatening f5 again. What do you do? It's looking sketchy. Yeah, I don't know what to do. I think the moral of the story is that you kind of arbitrarily I'm not going to debate putting knight on the side of the board, but you arbitrarily, compromise your own structure, and he just like helps you, and it's like, let's just put it back the way it was, which is mindless. He mindlessly takes on g4 and then puts you back to where you were. So everything's fine again for white. And now he is like a cheapo. This doesn't even qualify as cheapo, Bishop e7 isn't even a cheapo. It's so sad. I mean, you could just play g5. Maybe you can even sacrifice a piece at this point. Rook e1, castle queenside, and now what? Well, whenever he goes knight c4, you're going to have to take it. But I was going to suggest this. Maybe. Bishop g3. And rook g8. I don't know. Are you really worse here? Peter says it's dead equal. It would be hard to describe this position as equal, though. It's clearly a weird position. And I clicked on the engine because I didn't even know objectively who's better. Mr. Slow, take care. Thank you for your donation. We're up to 750 after Mr. Slow. See you on Sunday. So the position is about equal. Idea of queen f4. But you played bishop e4. And I just want to say that this move has some problems. You know, you no longer have a way to deal with knight c4. You're trading off a very strong bad bishop on d5 for your good bishop. And I suspect that you're you're in some pretty deep shit after this. But one question is the classic Caro Kann move, queen d5. I know this on Prism for a fact. Spends weeks considering which game to submit for the stream here. Carefully mulling his options. But after queen d5, threatening queen a2, we see a very, very standard sort of motif. I think you're in pretty big trouble again. That's going to be really hard to deal with. Between queen a2 and a knight coming into c4, sacrifices on, you know, you better have some kind of miracle here. You're going to need it. Can we play like b3? I mean, this looks bad. So ironically, like bishop e4 is probably a big mistake. Giving him access to d5. Good comeback. Okay. Well, he was too fixated on this sort of cheapo here. He won a pawn. Look how much time he has. What, you got queen a6 mate for us or something? Here I was expecting queen a6 mate, and you played queen h6. Now, how are you going to get queen a6 mate with your queen on h6? Ugh, queen d5. He finds this now. Rook g4. It looks grim. Now, at this point, he has no need to do this craziness. He shouldn't be going for it. Danger. Danger, Will Robinson. He fell for that. Check. Now, theoretically, what happens if he plays rook d7? Is that mate too? Oh, that's ugly. Rook d7, queen c6 check, bishop d8. What am I talking about? King d8, rook d7, queen c6 check, king d8. That's mate. Queen a8. Oh my gosh. So it's, yeah. He has to play king b7. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. He's getting mated in all variations. Ooh, that's brutal. Here, 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 and here, or here, and then here. Oof. That's not good. So he plays rook d7, and then you found it. And the black resigned at queen c6. All right. Next game. Acerbate with black against, ooh, an upset. Upset victory. All right, acerbate with black. I don't know if Yabanis is still here. You guys need to go or something, let me know. I've been taking my time with the games tonight. Just chilling. How's the temperature? Temperature 30. That is not very comfortable, boys and girls. I'm getting Alzheimer's. All right. You got really high ragweed pollen. I'm like coughing and sneezing and shit. So, all right, Astrobate is black against a pretty strong player. He's a regular participant from Slovenia, 1865. Astrobate 1756. You had time to play better, Sun Prism. You know your limitations. You play too fast and then start using your time when it's too late. So interesting, Astrobate plays e4 knight c6. The Nimzovich defense. He has no idea what he's doing. Well, he played g3, and then Astrobate played e5. It's like e4, e5, g3, knight c6. Knight e2. The Alapin opening. And so here, like, bishop c5 is a good move. Another interesting option, for black here is d5. Because you're challenging his center. And if he takes, he's got a problem. And then the more mundane move, I don't really love knight f6 that much. So I would prefer one of the other options there. But Astrobate played creatively, f5. Okay, this is a good move. It's a reasonable try. It's like a Vienna game. You're playing the Vienna game. And Astrobate knows how to play the Vienna game. The Vienna Gambit. No, I like it. F5. Why not? I also liked it against the Ponziani. So you took your opponent out of book, played f5. What is white to do? Not easy. Taking is one school of thought. And then the other option is securing his center with d3. That's what he does. It's a little bit passive. So at this point, you might stop to think, okay, is the fact that he's played d3 now, is this a threat to take on f5? So let's say if you play like knight f6, can white take? Try to support that with h3, g4, like a Fischer King's Gambit. I guess the question really is, Astrobate, should you consider taking? I think there's a lot of concession to this, but it would eliminate the risk of sacrificing a pawn. Take knight f6. It looks like a very reasonable position. You would open the f-file for yourself. This doesn't do that much for him. He doesn't have like a bishop coming to c4. But you got really provocative, with bishop e4 check. And I know you're doing this a lot. But I think that you have to have a talk with yourself, like self. Is the move I'm making productive, or is my opponent able to play a constructive move here? You know, commonly this is played in the it's played in the Scotch, in positions Scotch like positions where it will induce the opponent to not put his knight on c3. I think the question really is c3 a useful move for white, a constructive move for white? If it is, we shouldn't play this move, you know. The other thing is, like, he can certainly play alternatives, bishop d2, knight d2, any of the above. The good thing is you threaten to get your bishop outside the pawn chain, but I mean, bishop c5, is a way more common. This is a common move, and you would normally play that. All right, check, provocative, c3, and now if you keep the bishop outside the pawn chain, he's going to have chase you down. I'm going to get you, sucker. If you go bishop a5, it's the I'm going to get you, sucker variation with b4 here, a4. Dude, what happened? Did I do that? All right. c3, bishop back to e7. Yeah, I guess I don't like this. I think that c3 is not a negative move for white. You could argue that it weakens his light squares, but he has a light square bishop, and it's going to g2, and it's going to control d5, and I don't think that he's weak on the white squares. There it is. He played knight f6. Now white needs to seriously consider taking this. But the problem is, if he takes it, he can't protect it. Like d5, you're going to pick off this pawn. If he had h3 and you're in trouble. So castle, castle, f4. Now that's a very risky move to play. I want to say, Nosa played quietly until now. I'm surprised to see f4 because it's certainly a possibility, but he's played really very quietly thus far. He certainly doesn't have to play f4. But it's a little difficult to suggest a good move for white. All right, so f4. It's not bad, I don't think. You took, and then bishop c5 check, followed by knight g4. But you had to be weird. You couldn't be like normal and play bishop c5 check first. You had to be weird and play knight g4 first. That's strange, dude. You know that, right? Like you're being weird. Play this immediately, but there's a problem with it. Like check here, knight g4, queen d5 check. Jeez. So that loses a piece. Not a good idea. So if you play bishop c5 check, king h1, you'd have to play d6, defend your bishop. Then you would be threatening knight g4. But white would have time to react and play, for example, h3 there. And it's a game. Okay. So you played knight g4. Now you're threatening bishop g4 check. And he does it. Bishop c5 check, rather. 3 check. And now here. Okay, so the million-dollar question is, can black... Oh, no. So if king h1, knight f2 check, takes, he has no way to, like, trap that bishop or anything. And you just up the exchange. And this check doesn't really do anything. That was cute, man. So if you played the obvious move order, you would have lost a piece. Save the check. So on check, he decides to play this move, a desperate attempt to avoid losing a piece. Which doesn't really work out. He saw this, and then, you know, like capture, and he's okay, or, you know, at most he's losing a pawn. It looks like you have a really nice move. Knight takes d4. And now you're threatening discoveries on this side. But now I wonder, if he had taken your knight, what would you have played? Here's the question. If he takes your knight with a pawn, what's your discovery? If you go for the rook, what I'm thinking is you can win your bishop instead with check, king h8, queen takes c5. And then it's possible that your knight could be trapped on a1. But it still looks very decent for black. It's close. Wow. Wow. So this really was equal. That's his best chance. H to hg4. Maybe it's something better though. But ask me to answer the question. Answer the question. We're all waiting. What would you have done? You're not down anything in this position. The material is equal. You would discover check, but no mates. You could play anything. But your knight is under attack. No answers? Come on, Asterbate. The engine found a very difficult line. 96. Putting pressure on the dark squares. I don't think I would have found this. Check. King moves. Pawn takes f4. I mean, if I have time, I would find it, but in a fast game, I'm not sure. The point is, and you might have found it as well. You have this. So it could be hard for him to recapture on f4. He might have to take with a rook. In that case, well, he's in trouble anyway. Because you always have threats on the dark squares. So anyway. So he takes back on d4, check. King h1, knight f2, rook f2, bishop f2, he won the exchange, queen d5, king h8, and he gets a pawn for it. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. He's already been down a pawn though, so he's down a full exchange. And you can even take on g3, which you did. So he's down an exchange and a pawn after bishop h g3. And there goes the king's side. So I want to caution you to be careful. You're a little behind the development. d6, queen d5, and now c6, taking control of central square. Now I'll trade queens. Good move. He loses to h3. But he realizes if he trades queens, he's lost anyway. So he avoids the exchange of queens, but loses his king side. With bishop takes h3, so he's lost. Yeah, but a practical try. Nice game, Master, but you must have had very low center-pawn loss on this. It's supposed to have been one of your lowest center-pawn loss games. I mean, what's the readout? Very low center-pawn loss for black. Were you cheating? No. 2 inaccuracies. Apparently you made 2 inaccuracies. That's not bad, man. This is one of your better games. I mean, seriously, it was very clean. And you didn't misplay the opening. A lot of times you do. You equalized, and then you beat him. And it's like, okay, 5 inaccuracies, no mistakes, no blunders, 27 center-pawn loss. It's a good quality game. Well done. Against a pretty strong opponent who's been over 1900. Okay, next, Mr. Bites. I don't know if Mr. Bites is still with us. He may have passed out. Mr. Bites is white. This is a game I think he played today. So Tobias, aka Spectre Camel, is here. G3, D5. This always makes me, yeah, makes me hate living. Oh, this is not from today. Okay. But anyway, facing the Slav type setup when you're playing, you know, Fianchetto, it's really frustrating. I'll normally play knight f3, going into a King's Indian attack, but he played f4. Nothing wrong with a little birds opening here and there. So black played bishop f5, but it's like he couldn't make up his mind in this game. There is an interesting idea, maybe knight d7. I was gonna say knight d7, knight f3, queen c7. Here, Lima versus Sergio Rocha from Portugal. Queen c7. So if your opponent likes this type of setup, he should try to do this maybe immediately. Funny, there's no games. That's not a bad answer for black. Black ended up not playing e5 here. Knight of gf6. We transposed to a bunch of games. Artemin Miles. Artemin Miles versus Kaidanov. But yeah, that seems like a good setup for black. Your opponent, however, couldn't seem to make up his mind. So he starts out playing the London system. And then after knight f3, I would anticipate knight f6. Even h5 has been played. Knight d7 isn't so bad. d3. Now the next move is a bit weird. So he started out with the London system, and then he's playing queen c7. And the problem is here, like he's playing 2 systems at the same time, it seems like. System 1 and System 2, but System 1 and System 2 don't necessarily go together. You're coming with the e4 idea, and meanwhile he just randomly stuck his bishop on f5. Now knight c3, and now you're already threatening e4. So, well, I mean, it seems pretty obvious. Black needs to do here would be playing knight f6 to stop e4. I mean, if you did something like knight h4, he has to think outside the box. You know, we got to be careful about the bishop getting trapped or something with f5. But maybe black could even play e6, you know. It's not so simple. What I don't like is the way that your opponent plays two systems at the same time. So he's playing half London system, half this like Kali system for e5, and now he goes h6 back to London system. This is too late. So there goes the center. And that's already a serious concession. There goes his Karo-Kan-Slav strong point on d5. A lot of people don't realize how serious this is. They're like, oh yeah, just trading pawns. Well, yeah, but it's your central pawn that you no longer have. Take. And yeah, this is a tough decision now, but black's already in trouble, in my opinion. But you know what? I don't know. I guess what he did is probably fine. He also has to consider bishop h7. But in any case, I'm wondering, like, should you play e5 here? I mean, you played, like, a little routinely. I guess, though, if you did that, he could decide to go back, maybe. I don't trust that, though. That doesn't look right. I mean, here, e6 or something? I mean, I don't think so. That looks really dangerous for black. So if you did e5, he would probably play e6. Yeah. I guess you're a little overextended. If we only had lots of time, we could just do whatever we wanted here. I mean, I really like your pawn structure and space. But I'm afraid e5 is too slow. So you castled? No, you played h3, trades, take with the queen, which develops a piece, and then black played e5, and that's a bummer, you know. e5 is kind of a bummer because we really would have liked to have played e5 ourselves. But the good news is, I think that he has a lot of weaknesses on the light squares. f7 in particular. So I didn't tell you when I saw this earlier, but my first idea, well, I mentioned it, but you know, at some point we want to get this bishop. Could be a very strong piece. So e5, and then bishop e3, keeping in tension. Black plays knight f6. You castle. You could castle queenside. Completely viable. If you asked me to guess the opening, I don't know what it is. I would say it was a Vienna, some weird Vienna or something. Vienna against the Philidor where you exchange pawns or something. You could absolutely castle queenside. You castle kingside. And then he plays a strange move, bishop d6, which we talked about, you know. This bishop is like just, yeah, it's just blocking the queen. It's itself blocked by the pawn. It's shut in. I mean, you have this pawn is like super protected on f4. I mean, theoretically, black could play pawn takes pawn in g5 and open up the dark squares, but not so easy to do that. So, as I said to Yabatis, like he should play either bishop c5. This is a very good exchange of pieces for black. Black is okay after bishop c5, or maybe even bishop b4. But this move is not good. You know, bishop d6. And we thought that white should maintain the tension here. So you could make a waiting move, maybe king h1. Open file, always good. And then knight moves like knight d1, recirculating, knight e92, hoping to go here later. But you played f5, and this seemed kind of counterintuitive. And I think the reason why it's counterintuitive is because you have the bishop pair. And normally with the bishop pair, you want to have pawn imbalance and tension. And in that tension, you're looking for ways to create imbalance. If there's no tension, you can't create imbalance. But f5 allows him, to go back to the bishop c5 idea, which I think is one of his best chances. Black has a lot of moves, could play like a5, blockading, castle queenside. We found a neat move for Yabatis here. You can't take the pawn because the bishop gets trapped. But what white can do is play queen f2. And that would stop bishop c5, which is the freeing move for black's position. And this is really weakening. So I think you're definitely better there. So I think he should go for bishop c5, 100%. This is his best shot. Trading his bad bishop off. And although your bishop is bad, you have so much space that his knights have no outposts. So you're still fine. You're definitely not worse. Don't believe the engine. The engine says that you're slightly worse. Just an engine. It's fake news. But I don't like f5, and I'm sure you're not worse before f5. But after f5, he castled into the attack on the king's side. Crazy. g4, and now he found bishop c5. So congratulations, he found bishop c5. Rook a e1, b5, kind of standard move, and then h4. And now the attack is in earnest. So this is the kind of place where you want to send out the coastal evacuation order in time. My first thought is how the hell do I get my king out of here? Back to e7. My other thought is I'll play knight h7 if I have to. Can I stop g5 at all costs? It's not too late for this dude to try to stop. Well, the active word, I guess, is try to stop it, right? You have a nice trap. If knight h7, take, g5, and if take, knight takes g5, this doesn't work. He can double defend his knights with queen e7. So there you would have f6, maybe creating some attacking chances. But I'm sure you have better. So in the game, we have b5, h4, queen b6. Bishop takes c5, and then knight takes c5, king h1, b4, and then black is depending on getting a tempo here, maybe, to stop your kingside advance. But I'm wondering, what did this queen b6 really help black? Because on c7 he could at least go to e7, and on b6 it's so funny. He has no way. I was talking to Asterbate today about the people under the stairs. It's another game where the people under the stairs couldn't get out. The queen on b6 is just stuck under the stairs here. This is this quadrant is off limits. If only that queen could come back here somehow to help defend the king side. I mean, I guess he can get back to d8. So if you were to move your knight now, let's say, and you can't go here because of knight takes e2, if you were to play knight d1, and he were to play knight h7, you can play some sort of aggressive move like queen g3. He has f6. He's staying alive. Or maybe he can come back here to help save save the game on the dark squares. But I don't think he did himself any favors by putting the queen on b6. It doesn't do anything on this diagonal. It's actually farther away from his own king side than it is on c7. This is a useful square, like e7. But anyway, you made a really nice move. You didn't retreat. You just played g5. So he takes and then plays knight h7, attacking g5, and you didn't respond the way he wanted you to respond. So these pawns give white a huge attacking phalanx on the king side. And the pawn's hanging anyway, so Ibata sacks a piece, plays queen h5. Notice how this queen is cut off. That's our people in the stairs theme. Yeah, b takes c3, grabbing the piece. And then very interesting move here. f6, but is it necessary? So I'm wondering if you had any alternative way to do this. Long story short, I mean, do you have just like rook f3? Or rook e3? Rook f3? No. Because he has knight takes g5. Wow. Wow. He's going to have f6 with tempo there. So, like, check this out. Rook f3, knight g5, queen g5, f6 with tempo. Could be a useful move. So your f6 looks good. And now, like, for example, knight takes g5 isn't going to float. Well, I mean, maybe. But he's still in trouble. Takes, and then bishop h3, threatening this. And if black plays g6, you have queen h6, game over. Because this is met by bishop takes e6. So black sacks a knight now to get another queen with knight takes e4. Rook takes e4. Hello? Two queens. And then at this point, I guess, you have more than one. You have more than one move. Here you could have, no, this is, okay, this is weird. So, yeah, I was wondering about rook h4. This probably works as well. So rook h4, queen takes c2, defending h7. And then, would you have this? No. Because black has queen takes f5. Oh my god. Where's my variation? Queen takes f5. Rook takes f5. Check. And queen takes f5. Very important variation. So after this, it looks like rook h4 doesn't work due to queen takes c2. It's unbelievable. That's really unbelievable. So after queens, you go here. That's an amazing line. And now it's a different story, because if he takes, you really have bishop f5. And if g6, you're checkmating him with queen h6. My gosh. Cares about an extra queen. And now if queen takes f5, rook takes f5, black has no checks. On the other hand, you're not threatening anything. Oh, this looks like a problem. But maybe we have another move here. I just don't know where it is. Queen takes c2. No, I don't know about this. You have something here. Do you have like pawn takes g7? He has pawn takes g7. He has this. But I don't know about the moment, the timing of it. Right. Let me see this again. Takes, takes. You're threatening something? You're down a knight in this position, dude. I don't like the look of this. Rook e1. There's nothing else. Wait a second. If you take, he takes with check. He's winning our pieces. Yep. You have to. So I'm very concerned about queen takes c2. You could take on g7 there. But is it enough? All right, I gotta see this. No, you lost. Queen on bb2. Yeah, I thought you had something here. No, too late, Mozart. Yeah, it was a nice try, but it didn't work. He got lucky. Black played queen b5, missing queen c2. Queen b5. Yes, queen d5 check. But it's a big problem because now white has this for real. Now we have a real problem. And those queens are kind of redundant, right? Redundant queens. Something like a redundant queen. A good problem to have. Not really here. Yeah, queen d5 check, and then bishop e4. Oh no. Oh, so he played queen takes, rook takes. Can black save the game? He's still in the game. But I guess the problem is that pawn takes g7 is coming. So now you need to dig deep to find the defense. Queen c5, pawn takes g7. So he plays queen b5, hitting the rook. And the rook has to be defended. So rook g1. And now queen d5. The problem is, do we have any threats here? We got lucky in this one. Black played rook a b8. White played king h2. Black played rook b2. And then rook g2. And then he just, yeah. Black has to be winning here. It's not that easy. He's winning. He gets lazy. And suddenly he's getting mated on the H file. This is a cute move. Can black defend? Check. King H8. Maybe King G8, then G6. So can black defend after this blunder? If he doesn't take back on G7, he just moves his rook somewhere. Probably still winning, right? Yeah. This is a decisive mistake. King takes G7. Mindless recapture. And now check. King H8. Rook H3. And black figures he's winning. It's funny. He has a check here. That looks decent. But he goes rook G8, allowing G6. That's like a... Yeah, that's... Oof. How do I lose to this idiot? Right? You all know the feeling. Why must I lose to this idiot? Queen G6 is another easy defense. This funny though, this is a very elegant move. G6. He's got 3 ways to capture at G6 and they all lose. Ooh, that's sick. So he lost with mate. Very nice. All right. So last game, checkmate 9-4-4. This is a game from the... Okay, what is this? Random game. Okay, online game. WIM. You're playing white? Castles. Bishop E2. C5. I said C5. I meant E5. So E5, and it's a Gligorich King's Indian. And then this is so funny. Black plays like the worst move here. It's 2024 now. People are still messing this up. It was funny. Both Alex Scherzer and Angelina Belikoskaya played this move against me back in the early 90s. It's like literally the worst move you can play. They're trying to play like it's hard to believe that people are still making this mistake in 2024. There's a game where Kovalenko actually won with black. He's a tricky guy. It's not like black loses by force, but the point is white plays knight d2 and doesn't castle. White is a very good position after this. Very good position after this. You're not committed to castling kingside. That's the point. You know, you're the best. You basically have the best of both worlds. You have a knight d2, like a knight d2 King's Indian, with the bishop on e3, with no commitment to castle kingside. So here, I don't know. You know, I don't remember my own game. I remember, like, against Scherzer, I did something really stupid. I think I castled kingside against Scherzer. I castled kingside anyway and got mated. It's I mean it's a good, you can castle if you like, you can still castle kingside, but it's not the right idea, you know. The whole point is to not castle kingside and get mated. No, but I was thinking like, what about, I mean, everything's, all the options are on the table. C5 is the most common move. There's certainly no obligation to play your money back guarantee, or obligation. No obligation to play C5 right away. F3 is certainly not a bad move. Mozart, thanks for subscribe. What did you do? Follow or subscribe there? You got a gift sub. Oh, Astrobate gifted gift subs to no, that was 2 hours ago. We got what, 3 gift subs? T Streets an hour ago. Angel Fire GR an hour ago from Richard Brenton. And Astrobate just gifted it to something Mozart. All right. No, I don't know. I mean, I'm tempted to play G4. There's no way that G4 is not good, you know. G4 F5. I guess the question is though, like, how do we play the structure after F5? See, one player played pawn takes F5 here. The problem with this, oh, George Botterill in 1981. The problem with this is that I guess black gets a square at least for his knight on G6. I still like white, but you can see like F3, I have an idea. Okay, F3, F5. Now, you could play G4. Still completely viable. Safety first. I keep wondering what will happen if black plays this. Probably H3. Attack is the best defense. I don't know about that, but they say best offense is a great defense. I don't know if it works in reverse. If knight f6, I guess we just play h3. I don't want to give him like a good square for his knight on h5. That's very bad. But honestly, I mean, you have such a space advantage that, like, you know, you can be patient here. We don't have to kill the guy right away. You know, space advantage will win in the long run. So you just played c5, and then black played knight f6. Yeah, you could look the score that black has with f4. Clearly, closing the lines is not the right plan here for black. I once had a Samish that was like this, but it took forever to win the game. If you castle kingside, that's what happened to me against Scherzer. I wasn't that good back then. I was like 2200. Okay, so Bogdan Lalich playing white, knight c4, and then yeah, I mean this transposes to a kind of Mark Hebden like setup. Black will play knight g8 and then the other knight to e8. And if you were to castle kingside, maybe black's position would be reasonable. Bogdan did the same thing against Hebden in the normal bayonet attack. See? EG8. And Boggy would normally play like B4 here, I would think. B4, A5, B5. Though against Hebden, his bishop was on A3, I think, in the game that I remember. Again, that was a bayonet attack, not a. But I mean, I'm wondering, like, really here whether White should very seriously consider castling queenside in the near future, rather than, here Lalich randomly goes A4. I mean, I don't know, Seriously, what's the best move? I'm not convinced by this. I mean, I'm not even convinced by the previous move, to be honest. I'm not sure we should necessarily play knight c4 right away. Maybe we should move the queen or something at some point. See what the computer says. CD6, CD6, castles kingside. Well, obviously you can castle kingside. But I was really thinking about castling queenside, so along these lines. Yeah. Here the engine's looking at knight h5, castle queenside. Ultimately, your king is safer on that side because you have more space on that side. Right, Mozart, but I mean, that's like launching the A pawn is maybe not, not a plan we want to combine with castle and queenside. You're talking about normal classical King's Indians where we're probably castle kingside. I'm just suggesting, like, if we're gonna castle queenside, which we normally wouldn't be able to do, then I think the first priority is just castle queenside king b1. And we just shift to the c file. We don't need our a pawn or anything. White's just positionally better, but we do have to watch knight f4. Bishop will have to come back to f1 or something like that. It's not that simple, but at least our king is safe. So anyway, knight c4. We're still following these games. There's not many, obviously, because this is like a variation that most people know is bad. b6. Yeah, I saw this happen in a game. It's normally terrible for black to do this. I would very strongly consider my options here. But again, if you opt to castle queenside, then I mean, if you push c6, he's basically down a piece. This is not going to be easy to get into the game, and if that doesn't get in the game, then he's down a rook. So you need to very seriously consider this. A bishop a6. Yeah, but I mean, that's like positional travesty. You do anything there. b4. Computer just does b4. Bishop takes c4. Okay, it's still not easy to win the game. But I don't think black has any chances of his own to win. Oh, there was a neat move here. Whoa. Oh, wow. Wow, there's b5. So maybe Boggy's move is bad after all, I mean, I feel like White's rushing a little bit here with this knight c4, to be honest. That's why I was suggesting like queen b3 and castle queenside. The computer found b5. It's a fantastic move. None of these guys found b5. All of them wanted to like commit suicide because they already hated their position so much. that they couldn't find b5. This honestly doesn't look like the kind of move that was saving black, but what if there's like a knight sack on d5? The first idea is that the e4 pawn is going to get undermined. So if you take here, I have takes, takes, and takes. And for example, but more interestingly, if you come back and black plays like b4, you need to put your knight somewhere, and then e4 is protected, but I'm worried about d5. Like, what happens here? Is this one of these situations we're going to see, like, boom? This couldn't happen, right? This is unsound. Let's see. You have to consider it, but it's not enough. The engine's just happy to get that knight on the side of the board for white. And then it just makes some other move. Take, knight h5 or something. Yeah. So it's very interesting. b5 saves black. b5 and c6. Not surprised. And then even you know, in some sense, well, I'm telling you, like, the way I would play the game, I probably would have played g4 in the beginning, but if I'm not going to do that, then we try here queen b3. Black should play king h8 at some point. King castle queenside. Our king is pretty safe on b1. And the idea is to invade down the c file. And rather than have our king in the traditional position on g1, it's on b1. Because of our wedge in the center, it's very hard to attack the white king without making some kind of sacrifice or something. And that's why the whole variation is dubious for black, theoretically. Anyway, black played b6. You went here. Now this is hanging. Just yeah. Your e4 pawn is hanging, so I don't know about that. But he went back, and now you have freedom again. Maybe black should play a6 and b5 really quick here. He can't. Okay. He can't play a6 because the bishop takes b6. So now he's in trouble again. But I think you have to watch out with your king in the center. There could be a surprise check or something, you know, if that line clears. Yeah, that was reckless. You shouldn't have allowed e4 to be protected. This is it's still fine. It's not too late to play like queen b3 here. You always have, yeah, that's true. You have bishop f2 sometimes, but you always have this type of idea maybe too. I don't love my queen on a3. Yeah. I think thinking about your king safety paramount. Now this is anti-positional. But maybe black will have bishop h6 at some point. His problem is his knight on e7. And now he just doesn't have a light square bishop. So with no light square bishops, it's going to be pretty tough for black. That's his best piece. Best minor piece, light square bishop, gone. Yeah, and now you keep this and this both protected. So black's position is very strategically dubious at best. I mean, you can't, now you can castle kingside. The point is, like, you can't attack in the king's on the king side in the King's Indian with no light square bishop to sacrifice. And anyway, there's two open lines, so nobody's doing like a crushing closed pawn storm. Yeah, bishop g4 is a classic move. I mean, this is devastating. And notice his bad bishop can't get in the game. He needed to find a way to play bishop h6 or bishop f6, get his bad bishop in the game. This is a classically horrible King's Indian for black. Check. Is there a mosquito in here? Killed it. I think I killed it. I hope I killed it. All right. I just like hitting myself live on stream. King g7. And now you hit him with a subtle g4. That shows serious self-confidence. Something's been biting me lately. All right, anyway, guys, wrapping up for tonight. G4, threatening G5, H6, and then H4. Obviously, you have the rook F7, which is very strong. If takes, this is a terrible position. Yeah, I mean, that's the problem with the King's Indian. You know, if your knight is on E7, has nowhere to go, and it has to move to C8 from where it has nowhere to go, that's it, bro. Yeah, he got his darks for bishop back in the game, and he's defending F7. So he's hanging on, or she. Yeah, she's a she. I've been calling she a he, but that's not the point. Whoa. All right, knight's hanging. Not a big deal. Here, black has a choice between H7 and H8. So I'm like, I'm not sure. With H7, at least you stay on the bishop. But I guess that would allow bishop F8 anyway, which might be a strong move. I just don't know, like, which place to move the black king here. King H8, G5. I mean, it looks like you have a very commanding advantage that may well just be winning. Queen F2, Queen F7. Queen F2, Queen F7. She can play Queen E7 there. So what happens on Queen E7? Well, we're going to find out. She found it. Okay. Stopping the obvious Queen F7 is the only move, or is it? Theoretically, no, it's the only move. That is the only move, I think. Okay. She has another move. She has Rook C7. Oh no. She doesn't. Check. Takes. Check. Here. Check. Here. Wow, it's a draw. It's a draw. You only have perpetual. But you have a way to play for a win, or ways. Yeah, you have ways. The queen sack is only a draw, though. So you have to wheedle your way in there slowly. But her pieces are so conflicted, you know. This I call it the sludgy. This is a sludgy square. And this is a sludgy square. It's a good illustration, you know, of how much space your pieces like are contained in. It shows, you know, relatively how much mobility you have. All right, so queen e7, more obvious defense, and I played queen e2. And there's some ideas of h5. She defended, rook f7, sacked her queen. So what's up with this? Well, I mean, you got massive pressure. Maybe you're mating her now, huh? You just go in. Jeez. Yeah, that's pretty nasty. You probably play queen f3 or whatever now. Yeah. It's really bad. So I guess she has to sack her queen at that point. I mean, she wasn't so badly coordinated. It would be okay. But her knights are so sad. She's probably like losing. Maybe h5 at some point will be a move. So you probably looked at like queen e6, but figured black can go here. She's hanging on. So queen e7 stronger. Her knight has no squares. Oh, that's so sick. Yeah. And there goes the base of the pawn chain. That's it. Yeah, that was an adventure in the King's Indian, but your score is better than mine. I like drew Angelina Belikovskaya and lost to Scherzer in that position. But I had a third friend. I had a friend who got the same position, the same Gligorich once. I guess he drew too. We have a bad record. It's not that easy. I mean, this is a terrible line for black. Yet, as you can see, it's not so simple after d5 97. What's the score? 58% for white. 92 is definitely best. 98, and now, yeah, I mean, I wonder about this. And what does the computer think? It's nothing. It doesn't like g4 after f5. It's interesting. Here, what's the problem? F takes g4, there's a concrete problem. Oh no. Oh, knight takes d5. Oh man, it doesn't work. So you can't do it. Wow. I mean, you could do it, but you have to play g takes f or something. Knight f1. Well, that's a wacky move. That's a neat idea. g4, f5, knight f1. With the idea of keeping control of the f5 square. And if f4, you just go back, close the king side. But it's complex. This isn't so simple, you know? So it looks like g4 is not so good. A lot of people have played b4. Queen b3 right away. It's very logical to me. That's never been tried. So I like this idea of castling queenside. Anyway, guys, I gotta go. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for the gift subs from Masturbate and donation from Mr. Slow. I will I'll be back hopefully tomorrow morning with some blitz challenges, and then Sunday simul. As always, 6:30 p.m. CEST. See you guys tomorrow morning, hopefully. Later. Good games. Bye bye.